According to this funny number on YouTube, it seems like it has been more than a month since I made that last video on the Konami and Cygames lawsuit. And since that has happened more than a month ago, I get the feeling that most people, by virtue of the fact that this is the internet, have already forgotten that it has happened. I mean, even I forgot it happened until last week, because what happened was that in spite of the fact that both companies have remained silent till now, which is kind of surprising considering the fact that Konami has said nothing at all, even after Cygames had announced that the lawsuit was going to progress. A financial newspaper from Japan known as the Toyo Keisai actually put up an article stating that they have managed to acquire some of the information about the case, including a bunch of reports that have been written by Konami as well as the official proceedings, which I decided I want to share with you guys today. Although just a very small one, like the little packer of a update, so this is probably gonna be a very short video. That said, as you can see, I'm in my suit again. Well, this is in part a coincidence, to be honest, since I was actually in an interview with Cygames just before this. Unfortunately, they declined to speak about the Uma Musume lawsuit at all. During the interview, they were only willing to say that everything that they have to say about the case so far is already on the announcement they made in the past, so couldn't get anything else new out of them with regards to that, unfortunately. But before we get into that, there was something I forgot to mention in the previous video, which I did address to some people while we were speaking in the comments, which is the fact that the amount of money that Konami is suing for, as well as the other damages, was something I did not develop well enough in that video at the time, and I apologize for it. So the thing with what I mentioned in that video was that it was 4 billion yen. That is not wrong. But I forgot to put that into perspective because 4 billion yen, these are very big numbers obviously, but how much does it actually impact the company? So over here we run into a little bit of a conundrum. For you see, in case you didn't know, Cygames is actually not an independent company. They are a subsidiary of the much bigger company CyberAgent, which deals not only with games but with other forms of media and services as well. As a result, Cygames doesn't actually have to declare its own financials to anyone other than its parent company. And the big problem here is that the parent company kind of gives out information in this format, which, as you can imagine, is very useless to anyone other than them. You look at this number, right, and it says like there's a 13% year-on-year decrease in net revenues, and then they mention at the top of this whole thing that there's like this entire range of companies here. And out of this entire range of companies, I'm pretty sure at most 1 or 2 of them are actually profitable, so not really useful for us. However, you know me. Or, well, I know me. You may not know me, for me it's me with a 100 plus awesome subscribers. That said, me have found the information that is important to us. They had 222 billion yen in revenue. Now, needless to say, when it gets into profits, this number could vary a lot. But suffice to say that the number now is about 2% of their revenue for a single year. They also do mention at the end their own speculation of what would happen if we assume the worst case. And this ends up devolving like the Corolla and Nintendo case, wherein the damages claim actually increases over time, and they speculated the possibility of it going up like 2.5 times to 10 billion instead of just the current 4 billion. But as the article also points out, even if it did, considering the fact that Cygames is not a majority owner of its company, it's a subsidiary of a much bigger company called CyberAgent, which I think holds about 61.7% of the shares, it might actually result in the possibility of them having to foot part of this damages as well. And if the case actually rolls up to the parent company as well, this even if it actually became like 10 billion yen, this is gonna be a piss in the stream for them, because at that point, with how much money the company owns overall, this is really something that would barely scratch the parent company as well. So in terms of the monetary impact this could actually have, it might not actually be too much when you compare it to the total amount that Cygames is earning. However, the more important part of the lawsuit that I neglected to mention is one I do apologize, is the fact that what was more important about that lawsuit is the fact that Konami was also requesting that all of the services for Uma Musume be shut down as well. That is to say that they would prevent and stop providing the current service as it currently is to its consumers due to the fact that the games are too similar. And what this means is that if Konami actually wins the lawsuit, it's not just a case of paying damages, because the damages are a drop in the bucket compared to how much Cygames total earns. But if Konami actually wins in this case, we might see a repeat of what happened with Kodopra back during the Nintendo Kodopra lawsuit, where Kodopra, upon losing, more so than the damages they actually had to pay, they also had to reconfigure their game systems in order to continue providing the service they have been up to this point. More or less the same, although the battle system had changed. What we might see is that Uma Musume might have to do the same if Konami wins, but will they? We're going to talk a bit more about that today as well. So I don't know how they got a hold of this data, but apparently according to them, they managed to get a hold of 2 out of the 5 incident reports that have been written with regards to this case, which I guess best to take this with a grain of salt due to the fact that I can't find any of this information itself online. Then again, ever since the initial lawsuit, Konami still has not said anything, and we are about a month away. Cygames, aside from the initial announcement they put up, they have not said anything else yet either, so both sides are being rather quiet. Feels a little weird that Konami isn't making a statement at all, but then again, it seems like they were too busy partying on the week after making the lawsuit, so maybe they needed some time to heal up from whatever hangover they were on in the after party for that. But aside from the 2 incident reports that they have somehow managed to get their hands on, they have also found the 119-page report written by Konami with regards to why they feel that Uma Musume is too similar to their game. Like, Jesus, man, they have written an entire university thesis-long report just to explain how someone else is a poser at this point. But yeah, so far from what they have reported on based off the article as well as the 2 incident reports that they have managed to go through, what we can say for quite likely sure now is that, well, I was right on some things and I was wrong on some things, and I apologize for being wrong, but hey, with cases like this it's a little tough, so my bad. The writer at Toyo Keisai has mentioned that it would seem that at present, there seem to be 2 things that Konami is zoning and homing in on so far. One is the fact that the character raising system is quite similar, and 2 is the fact that not only is the character raising similar, but the fact that you can raise the character and use it in a separate PvP mode are 2 of the things that Konami is already focusing on so far. Needless to say, all information is not out yet, so we might see even more talk about what other things they think might be being infringed so far. But at the very least, what we can say is that it is quite likely that they are not suing for just one patent, as I mentioned in the previous video. While it might seem like these 2 things are going to be the same thing, it is quite likely that these would be 2 separate patents altogether at the very least. And so, even looking at just this first 2 points of contention, what we can see is that there is a very high likelihood that it is not just one patent that they're suing for, and also that, as expected, it's most likely not because of a UI thing. I mean, is anyone surprised about that? And for all of you observant, wonderful people out there, you may have noticed that then this would link back to something else I mentioned in the previous video, which is that, well, if Bandai Namco's Idolmaster Shiny Colors is quite similar to this, why are they not suing them, but suing only just Cygames for now? It's not like one is gonna be an easier pushover than the other in terms of how much money they have to throw at this lawsuit. So why? So obviously even then, there isn't really a way for us to know which patents exactly are getting infringed and how many of them. However, what we can do today is I can show you an example of a patent that, on thinking about it a little more and doing a lot more digging, it feels like could potentially be one of them. This is still speculation. I don't want to go too much in speculation, but what I want to do more importantly with this specific case is use it as an example of why one company could be an infringement and why the other company couldn't be, as an example of how patents have to be specific when it comes to game patents like these. So remember this one patent I brought up in the previous video, and I said that what this person is arguing, it's not likely to be the case, and unlike what this person is saying, that wasn't what was going to cause Cygames to die. So needless to say, when the newspaper mentioned that one of the things that Konami was looking at was the whole character raising system, it made me question a little what I could have missed. Perhaps I might have missed out something that made it more sense why they would specifically only sue Cygames for this and not Bandai Namco. And so I actually looked back at some of the previous patents, including this very energetic tweet that this person made about patent number 58143000. And funnily enough, this person I mean, they're still wrong. This is definitely not the reason that Cygames is going to die. However, I did find something in this patent that this person didn't bring up that would actually make a lot more sense than the point that they were trying to argue. And this relates to diagram 7 within the patent itself, this one over here. No, this isn't like some Japanese Minecraft crafting table. This is a diagram trying to explain the way that their event system works. So the way they patented the event system is that the inclusion of specific characters within the party that you're setting up would result in separate, completely different events occurring. So in the case of this diagram here, what they're showing is like, if you have A, you get this event. If you have characters A and B, you get a separate event, and so on and so forth. And this is what they're actually trying to patent, it would seem. So why is this important? It's because Shiny Colors actually does not have a system like this at all. Because when it comes to support events, or even events of the main character that you're trying to raise, the events are all fixed, and regardless of what characters you put into the party, the same events will always play. Well, the same events for that card. As in that if you were to put in character A and B, you would still get character A's events triggering and character B's events triggering, but you do not get anything special on top of that. And while this is mostly true for Uma Musume as well, there is one specific thing in the game that could have triggered this specific line within the entire patent: inheritance. I'm trying to make this look dramatic, but at the same time I feel like everyone who does not know the game is not going to understand what's happening. But to put it very simply, whenever you choose to raise a character, the main character, instead of just the support party that you put in, you also have the characters who will become the parents of that character. So you would select 2 characters who would become that one's parent. I mean, they're all the same age, but it's horse racing. It's just don't think about it too hard that anime waifu horse girls are having kids with each other. What's more important is the fact that when you select these 2 characters, what happens is that they would basically give you a different stat for the character below them, and they would trigger events during the gameplay itself, which would then give you all of the stats. You're kind of seeing where this is going, right? I get that it sounds like such a petty thing, right? That just this one specific small thing within the game might be the thing that's also causing them to get sued, as compared to why Bandai Namco isn't. But one thing you have to understand with this whole idea of like patents and all is that the whole thing is just petty to begin with. I don't think there's anything else to be said about it. But then you might say, oh, but then again, if you look at the thing the guy mentioned before in the tweet itself, right? This is a team comp, but what you're doing with the characters, the parents, is that they're not exactly in the comp itself, right? They are just like a separate entity that is different from the comp, that does not trigger in the same way as all your supports do. But what you have to understand is that if you look at 0.0127 within the patent itself, what it specifies is that the supports that assist you and that trigger all of these events, they don't necessarily have to be of the same type as the main character. So in the patent's own words, it even says that these characters can be managers, competitors, normies, anyone else in general. And then when you think about it, when your brain starts to spin a little more, like mine usually doesn't, you kind of realize that in that case, while they may not be directly shown as being in your deck, these characters, the parents, the grandparents and all that for the inheritance, while they may not specifically be in the deck, they are in a sense something that you're setting within a context of a team comp setting, and then they are triggering events specific to them, which is the event when you see both of them running together and the character themselves chasing after and getting the inheritance and all that. And that event is actually giving a separate, unique result from the events that the characters would have otherwise triggered. And when you look at 0.0154 as well, you kind of realize that both games have the issues of having the same star rarity thing going on and only having 3 rarities. And there's also the specification on how the gains that you get from this events triggering also changes depending on the rarity of the characters, or has the potential to change, as it specifically says there. Once again, the epitome of pettiness. But yeah, these are the points that could be the reason why Uma Musume is even more in contention than something like Bandai Namco's Shiny Colors. Because in spite of the fact that they are similar in the fact that they are all 3 of these games are games where you raise a character to use a character in a PvP mod, they could have some very slight differences that could potentially cause Konami to want to sue. Then when it comes to the actual battle segments itself, the possibility is that it is due to this one thing here. Put it up on screen.
行ってくるわ、プロデューサー。大丈夫よ、フォローは任せて。さすが私ね。ていやー、やったわやったわやったわ。行ってくるわ、プロデューサー。大丈夫よ、フォローは任せて。さすが私ね。これでどうだ。やったわやったわやったわやったわやったわやったわやったわやったわやったわやったわ。
Yes, that's right. You actually have to push buttons instead. And this mod has no auto system at all, so you can't even try to auto if you wanted to. You have to play it out, and you would very well want to due to the fact that within the battle itself, different characters, when you play them in different orders, can trigger different combo bonuses that would give you even more points, and missing the perfects as well would kind of trip you up and cause you to not be as high up the leaderboard as you need to get to the next rank. So this, I guess in the sense, actually would be a pretty big difference in terms of why PvP is different between these two games. So while conceptually, when you look at the two games overall, they might be similar, right? Like both games are, you raise a waifu, more ancestrals in one case, but we don't look at that for now. You use the waifu in an external PvP mode, and that's the entire gameplay loop. You raise, compete, gain gems, raise new, compete, and so on. In spite of the fact that this overall arcing loop is the same and the concepts are the same, the way that the systems implemented for raising and PvP are different, and these slight differences, or major in the case of the PvP, are enough for one company to be in trouble and the other to not be, due to the fact that this is how stringent these patents have to be. So before I let you wonderful people go, you have to understand that Uma Musume, while outside of Japan, we may not think as much of the game. This game actually made for a very big impact on Cyber Agents revenues. In the year 2021 itself, it actually quadrupled the earnings of the company in that year, as you can see from this graph here. Meaning that it's a very big cash horse in this case. And even in the year after, it's still almost triple of what happened before Uma Musume released. So it's a big IP. I don't think that they will stop it even if they lose the lawsuit. They'll probably just change the systems, because that is probably the best way they can go about this instead. But yeah, Cyber Agent's current cash equivalent holdings are about 180 billion. So even if it goes up to 10 billion, just their cash equivalents alone, we're not talking about any of their assets or everything else, should be enough to cover it. So it would hurt them, no doubt, because it's almost like, it's more than 5% of their total cash equivalents, but it's not gonna hurt as much as the message that would be sent by forcing this game to either end service or change its systems. Because, as you know, we spoke about in the previous case, there have been multiple cases of such patent issues happening in the industry in Japan, and it kind of sucks for everyone, but companies that are a bit washed up at this point are gonna do what they do just so that they can like keep themselves alive. I shouldn't say that, because if it one day comes out that like what company I work in, I'm probably gonna get fired, but hey, I'm changing my job soon, so it's not gonna be an issue. You guys will know. Yeah, so far that's all we know about the case. As more information comes out, maybe when there's more solid information in the future, I'll do another video. But until then, it's just gonna be a wait and see, since we don't really know what other information is gonna come out between now and whenever the lawsuit eventually starts. So until then, this is the last we'll talk about this issue for now. I'll be heading off now. Enjoy your time. Next video, I'll probably be talking about either a very bad game or a weeb event that I went to in the past few months as well, since there's a backlog of those that I really want to talk about, but they have not come out yet. So if you're interested in that kind of content, feel free to subscribe. If you don't want to watch any of that other type of content, feel free to give this video a like at least. It helps with something, I guess. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I'll be heading off for now. Enjoy your time. Take care and bye bye.